The discovery. The vastness of space stretched before the VSS Pathfinder as it emerged from its experimental quantum tunnel drive. The massive vessel represented humanity's greatest achievement, a perfect blend of exploration technology and defensive capabilities that had taken Earth's united scientific community 15 years to develop. Captain Alina Reyes stood on the bridge, her dark eyes reflecting the holographic displays that surrounded her command chair. At 42, she had spent more than half her life exploring the frontiers of space, but nothing in her 2 decades of service had prepared her for what they now faced. "Quantum tunnel complete, Captain," announced Lieutenant Kai Chen, his fingers dancing across the navigation console. "We've arrived at the coordinates, though I'm not entirely sure where here is." "Status report," Rise commanded, her voice steady despite the tension that filled the bridge. Commander Samira Cave, Reyes' second-in-command, frowned at her readings. "All systems operational, but—" She paused, adjusting several settings. "Captain, we're detecting massive energy signatures, unlike anything we've ever encountered. The scale is astronomical." Reyes was about to respond when the main view screen erupted with light. Massive streaks of golden energy crisscrossed with beams of absolute darkness that seemed to devour the very stars. Explosions bloomed across space like deadly flowers, each capable of consuming entire planetary systems. "My God," whispered Dr. Marcus Wong, the ship's chief scientist. "We've stumbled into a war zone." As if confirming his words, the ship's AI materialized as a shimmering green hologram beside the captain's chair. "Captain, I am detecting 2 distinct civilizations engaged in conflict. Based on energy readings and battle patterns, this conflict has been ongoing for approximately 800,000 Earth years." The bridge fell silent as the crew attempted to process this information. 800,000 years. Rice finally said, "That's longer than modern humans have existed." "Correct," replied Athena, the ship's eye. "And the technology being deployed exceeds humanity's current capabilities by several orders of magnitude." Before Rice could issue orders, the ship shuddered violently. "We're being scanned," Cave called out. "Multiple vessels approaching at high velocity." "Defensive positions," Rice commanded. "Shields at maximum. Remember, we're explorers, not combatants." The view screen shifted, revealing a being unlike anything any of them had ever seen. It appeared to be composed of pure golden light, its form constantly shifting yet maintaining a vaguely humanoid shape. When it spoke, its voice resonated directly in their minds. "Humans," the being said, the word carrying undertones of curiosity and wariness. "You have entered the eternal conflict. I am Zephyrus of the Luminary Collective. Your presence was unexpected." Reyes stepped forward. "I am Captain Alina Reyes of the United Earth ship Pathfinder. We are peaceful explorers who encountered your battle by chance. We mean no harm." The light being seemed to consider this, perhaps not by intention, but harm may follow nonetheless. "The Voidwalkers will have detected your arrival as well." As if summoned by these words, the view screen split to reveal a second entity. This one appeared as a moving absence of light, a darkness deeper than the void of space itself, with pinpricks of distant stars visible through its shadowy form. A new player enters the game. The shadow being's voice slithered through their minds like ice water. "How intriguing. I am Moros of the Voidwalker Dominion. Your species is young, fragile, delicious in its naivety." Reyes maintained her composure despite the chill that ran down her spine. "We have no quarrel with either of your civilizations. We simply seek to understand." A sound like dark laughter emanated from Moros. "Understanding is the beginning of ending, little human. For 800 millennia, we have danced this dance with the luminary. What could your infant species possibly comprehend? Perhaps our youth gives us perspective you both lack," Rise replied boldly. "After 800,000 years, neither side has prevailed. Have you considered that the conflict itself might be flawed?" Silence followed her words, a silence that seemed to stretch across the cosmos. Finally, Zephyrus spoke again. You speak with surprising wisdom for one so young. The Pathfinder found itself escorted by vessels from both civilizations, keeping a careful distance from each other as they traveled deeper into the conflict zone. Dr. Wong and his team worked frantically to analyze the data pouring in from their sensors. "This is extraordinary," he told Reyes in the ship's conference room, where the senior staff had gathered. The Luminary and Voidwalkers represent fundamentally opposing cosmic principles. The Luminary embody creation, expansion, and complexity. The Voidwalkers represent entropy, contraction, and simplification. "You're saying they're fighting over the fundamental nature of the universe?" Lieutenant Chen asked incredulously. "Not exactly," Dr. Wong clarified. "They're fighting over its fate. The Luminary believe in continuous expansion and creation. New stars, new life, new possibilities, forever. The Voidwalkers believe in the eventual heat death of the universe, a natural progression toward perfect entropy and stillness." Reyes frowned. "So this is essentially a philosophical war. Philosophy backed by enough firepower to reshape galaxies," Dr. Wong said grimly. "Based on our readings, thousands of civilizations have been caught in the crossfire over the centuries. Entire species extinguished because they were in the wrong place or chose the wrong side." Commander Cave looked up from her datapad. "The Luminary Nexus and the Voidwalker Sanctum are sending us coordinates. They're essentially their command centers, located on opposite sides of this star system. And they both want us to visit. Separately, of course," Reyes confirmed. "Yes, Captain," Cave nodded. Reyes stood and paced the length of the conference table. "In 800,000 years, neither side has been able to defeat the other. There's a balance here, a stalemate that's cost countless lives." She stopped, looking at each of her officers. "But we represent something they haven't encountered before, a completely outside perspective." "Captain," HFY interjected, her hologram appearing at the table, "I've been analyzing the quantum signatures of both civilizations. There's something unusual about their fundamental structure. They exist in quantum-locked states, the Luminary locked in a state of constant possibility, and the Voidwalkers in a state of singular determinism." Dr. Wong's eyes widened. "That's why they can't defeat each other. They're quantum opposites, like trying to simultaneously observe a particle's position and momentum." "And where do we fit in?" Chen asked. Reyes's expression shifted as understanding dawned. "We're neither. Humans exist in a state of quantum flux. We can collapse or expand quantum states through observation and interaction." She turned to HFY. "What would happen if we introduced human quantum consciousness into their conflict?" The AI's hologram flickered as calculations ran. "Unknown, Captain, but the potential for disruption is significant." Reyes nodded slowly. "Lieutenant Chen, plot a course for the Luminary Nexus first, then the Voidwalker Sanctum. Dr. Wong, I want everything you can give me on quantum consciousness and how it might interact with these beings. Commander Cave, prepare the ship for potential combat scenarios. Defensive measures only." As the Pathfinder approached the crystalline structure that served as the Luminary Nexus, Reyes couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had stumbled into something far greater than a mere war. This was a conflict about the fundamental nature of existence itself, and somehow, humanity now held the key to its resolution. Zephyrus greeted them within the Nexus, a vast chamber of light and geometry that seemed to extend infinitely in all directions. The being's luminous form coalesced into something more defined, more comprehensible to human perception. "For 800 millennia, we have fought to preserve the light of creation against the encroaching void," Zephyrus explained. "The Voidwalkers would reduce all existence to a single state, cold, dark, unchanging. We fight for diversity, for possibility, for the continuation of life itself." "And yet," Reyes countered, "in fighting this war, how many civilizations have been destroyed? How many possibilities extinguished?" Zephyrus dimmed slightly. "Sacrifices in service of the greater good. The loss of some possibilities to preserve possibility itself." "There's a contradiction in your methods," Reyes pressed. You fight for diversity yet demand alignment, for possibility, yet pursue a single outcome. Before Zephyrus could respond, the Nexus trembled. Alarms echoed through the crystalline structure. The Voidwalkers attack, Zephyrus announced, its form expanding in agitation. They must have detected your unusual quantum signature. They fear what you represent. The Pathfinder shuddered as energy weapons impacted nearby. Rice tapped her communicator. Cave. Status report. Massive Voidwalker fleet approaching. Captain. Cave responded, her voice tense. They're targeting both us and the Nexus. The Luminary are mobilizing in defense. Rice turned to Zephyrus. This war has gone on long enough. We came seeking understanding, but perhaps what you both need is resolution. What do you propose, human? Zephyrus asked, its light pulsing with curiosity. Rice's eyes reflected the determination that had carried humanity to the stars. Something neither of you has tried in 800,000 years. Synthesis instead of opposition. But first, we need to visit the Voidwalkers. Zephyrus flickered with what might have been uncertainty. They will not listen. They cannot comprehend anything but the inexorable march toward entropy. Perhaps, Rides acknowledged, but humans have a unique talent for changing the rules of engagement, and right now, that might be exactly what this ancient war needs. As the Pathfinder broke away from the Nexus, accelerating toward the darkness of the Voidwalker sanctum, Rise knew they were racing against time. The fate of not just humanity, but potentially all life in the galaxy, would be determined by what happened in the next 50 minutes. The resolution. The Voidwalker sanctum existed as a perfect opposite to the Luminary Nexus, a region of space where darkness had physical form and silence carried weight. The VSS Pathfinder approached cautiously, its systems struggling to maintain normal operations in the presence of such concentrated anti-energy. Shields at 60% and falling. Commander Cave reported. Whatever this place is, it's actively hostile to our technology. Captain Rice nodded grimly. Dr. Wong, status of the quantum consciousness integration. The chief scientist looked up from his console, dark circles under his eyes betraying his exhaustion. The Luminary provided crucial insights. We've modified the quantum tunnel drive to broadcast human consciousness patterns rather than simply move the ship through space-time. And the potential effects. Rice pressed. In theory, Wong explained, it could disrupt the quantum-locked states of both the Luminary and Voidwalkers, forcing them into a state of superposition rather than rigid opposition. In practice, Cave asked skeptically. Wong shrugged. Either we create a new paradigm that ends an 800,000-year war, or we trigger a quantum cascade that destroys reality as we know it. Comforting, Cave muttered. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the shadowy form of Moros. Unlike their previous encounter, the Voidwalker entity seemed more focused, more defined in its darkness. You have been corrupted by luminary deception, Moros stated, its voice a cold whisper in their minds. Yet still you come, curious. Ray stepped forward. We come seeking understanding, as promised. Understanding requires perspective, Moros replied. Allow me to provide it. The darkness surrounding the ship seemed to deepen, and suddenly the bridge crew found themselves experiencing visions, stars exploding into supernovae, galaxies colliding, civilizations rising and falling in the blink of an eye. All things end, Moros continued as the visions flowed. The Luminary fight against the inevitable. They would prolong suffering by extending existence beyond its natural conclusion. We offer the mercy of finality, of perfect rest. Ray struggled against the overwhelming sensations. There's more to existence than just its beginning and end. There's meaning in the journey itself, a comforting fiction told by finite beings. Moros dismissed. The journey, as you call it, is merely the slow decay from order to disorder. We simply hasten the process. If that's true, Rice challenged, then why has this war lasted 800,000 years? If entropy is inevitable, the Luminary should have fallen long ago. A ripple passed through Moros's shadowy form, the Voidwalker equivalent of surprise. They resist the natural order with unnatural persistence. Or perhaps, Rice suggested, the natural order is more complex than either of you recognize. Perhaps creation and entropy are not opponents but partners in a greater cycle. Before Moros could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Captain, Lieutenant Chen's voice was tight with urgency. Massive luminary fleet approaching. They're engaging the Voidwalker defenses. The sanctum trembled as energy weapons impacted its dark surface. Moros's form expanded in what might have been anger. Treachery. You distracted us while they prepared their attack. This wasn't our doing, Rise insisted, but it presents an opportunity. The time for talk is ending. Now we must act. Reyes turned to her crew. Return to the ship immediately. Prepare the modified quantum tunnel drive. We have less than 30 minutes to implement our plan. Back aboard the Pathfinder, Reyes gathered her senior officers on the bridge. Outside, the space battle had escalated to unprecedented levels, with weapons fire lighting up the darkness of space. Athena. Reyes called to the ship's AI. Tactical assessment. The holographic woman appeared, her expression grave. Both fleets are fully engaged, Captain. Energy readings suggest they're deploying weapons capable of destroying entire star systems. Civilian worlds in 3 adjacent sectors are already reporting catastrophic damage. Reyes's jaw tightened. Then we proceed as planned. Dr. Wong, is the modified drive ready? Yes, Captain, but I must emphasize the experimental nature. Duly noted, Doctor. Reyes interrupted, but we're out of alternatives and out of time. She turned to Cave. Position us at these coordinates, directly between the main fleets. Cave's eyes widened. Captain, that's suicide. We'll be caught in crossfire from both sides. Precisely, Reyes nodded. We need both civilizations focused on us for this to work. As the Pathfinder maneuvered into position, taking multiple hits that further weakened its shields, Reyes opened a channel to both the Luminary and Voidwalkers. This is Captain Elena Reyes of the VSS Pathfinder. Your war has raged for 800,000 years, devastating countless innocent civilizations in its wake. Today, it ends. Zephyrus and Moros both appeared on split screens. You cannot stop what has been in motion since before your species evolved. Human, Moros stated coldly. Your bravery is admirable but misplaced, Zephyrus added, its light pulsing. This conflict transcends your understanding. Reyes stood tall, unflinching. Perhaps what this conflict truly needs is something neither of you possess, humanity. With that, Reyes gave the command. Activate the modified quantum tunnel drive. Dr. Wong initiated the sequence, and the ship began to vibrate as the drive powered up. Quantum consciousness field expanding, he reported. 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Where the field touched Luminary and Voidwalker ships alike, their very nature seemed to waver. Light beings flickered between brilliance and shadow. Void entities solidified then, dispersed in rapid succession. What is happening? Zephyrus demanded, its form destabilizing. Impossible. Moros hissed, its darkness rippling with distortion. Reyes watched with grim satisfaction. We're introducing a third state to your binary war. Humanity exists in quantum flux, neither locked in endless possibility like the Luminary, nor fixed in deterministic entropy like the Voidwalkers. We change, we adapt, we evolve. The quantum consciousness field is approaching critical mass, Wong warned. Containment at 30% and falling. Hold position, Reyes ordered. Expand the field to maximum range. The effect spread throughout both fleets, creating a cascade of quantum disruption. Ships from both sides began to change, taking on aspects of their enemies while retaining elements of themselves. You're forcing us into harmony. Zephyrus's voice was incredulous. Not harmony, Reyes corrected. Complementarity. You can't exist without each other. Creation requires the potential for entropy. entropy depends on prior creation. You're not enemies. You're two halves of a cosmic whole. The ship shuddered violently as the drive strained beyond its limits. "Captain, we can't maintain this field much longer," Cave warned. "The drive is approaching critical overload." Reyes nodded. "We've done enough. Prepare for emergency quantum tunnel. Get us clear of the battlefield." "Where to, Captain?" Chen asked, hands poised over the navigation controls. Reyes looked at the transformation spreading throughout both fleets. Luminary ships now carried streaks of darkness. Voidwalker vessels glowed with inner light. "Anywhere but here, Lieutenant. Our work is done." Just as the quantum tunnel drive initiated its emergency sequence, the ship was struck by simultaneous weapons fire from both sides. The bridge erupted in sparks and smoke as systems overloaded. "Tunnel sequence compromised." Chen shouted over the alarms. "Drive stability at critical levels." The last thing Reyes saw before consciousness faded was the spectacle of luminary and voidwalker ships no longer firing at each other, but instead turning their attention to a new phenomenon forming at the center of the battlefield. A swirling vortex of light and darkness, perfectly balanced. Reyes awoke in the ship's medical bay to find Dr. Wong standing over her, a relieved smile on his tired face. "Welcome back, Captain," he said. "You've been unconscious for 3 days." Reyes struggled to sit up. "The ship, the crew, mostly intact," he assured her. "We took heavy damage, but Cave got us into an emergency tunnel before the drive could overload completely. We're currently orbiting an uninhabited planet about 10 light-years from the battlefield." "And the war?" Reyes asked, her voice hoarse. Wong's smile widened. "That's the truly remarkable part. It's over, Captain. After 800,000 years, it ended in the 50 minutes after our intervention." "Ended how?" Reyes pressed, attempting to rise from the bed. "Easy," Wong cautioned, gently pushing her back down. "Athena, show the captain what we're seeing." The AI projected a hologram above Reyes's bed. It showed the former battlefield, but instead of warring fleets, there was now a massive stellar nursery, a region where new stars were being born. But unlike any nursery Reyes had ever seen, these new stars pulsed with both light and darkness, existing in a state of perfect balance. "The quantum consciousness field triggered exactly what you theorized," Wong explained. "A state of complementarity rather than opposition. The luminary and voidwalkers have merged isn't quite right. They've evolved into something new, a civilization that embodies both creation and entropy in balance." "They've sent a message," HFY added. "They call themselves the Equilibrium now. They wish to meet with you when you're recovered." Their communique specifically mentioned that humanity provided the missing element, Wong continued. "Our capacity to exist in quantum flux, to be both orderly and chaotic, predictable and spontaneous, was the catalyst they needed. They're offering humanity a place in their new coalition as equals, despite our technological inferiority." Reyes leaned back, processing this information. 800,000 years of war ended because humans stumbled into the wrong place at the right time. "Not wrong," Wong countered. "As the Equilibrium put it, precisely where the universe needed you to be. They believe your actions were the culmination of a cosmic plan set in motion at the beginning of the conflict." Reyes laughed softly. "I just wanted to stop innocent civilizations from being caught in the crossfire. And instead, you've redefined the cosmic order," Wong said with a grin. "Not bad for 50 minutes of work." "Not bad at all," Reyes agreed, looking at the beautiful swirl of balanced energies on the holographic display. "Though I doubt Starfleet Command ever imagined first contact would go quite like this." "Speaking of command," Cave said, entering the medical bay with a data pad, "they're going to want a report. How exactly do you plan to explain that we ended an 800,000-year intergalactic war within an hour of stumbling into it?" Reyes smiled. "The truth, Commander, that when faced with an impossible situation, humanity did what it does best, We adapted, we evolved, and we changed the rules of the game. As the Pathfinder's crew prepared to meet the representatives of the newly formed equilibrium, Captain Alina Reyes couldn't help but feel a profound sense of hope. In just 50 minutes, humanity had proven that even the most ancient and intractable conflicts could be resolved with a fresh perspective. Perhaps that was humanity's greatest strength, not our technology or our resilience, but our unique ability to see past binary oppositions and forge new paths where none had existed before. And now, as humanity took its first steps into a much larger cosmic community, that strength would be needed more than ever.